right. Hello, everyone. So today I am doing an analysis of the original film Planet of the Apes from 1968 with my good friend Daniel here. Hey, Daniel, it was
Yeah,
your idea to recommend Planet of the Apes for us to discuss.
that's
What
right.
was one of the key reasons why you wanted to focus on that film over many others?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a film that, for one, I particularly like, just because of the themes in it. And then from a socionics perspective, I think there's kind of an interesting theme of a conflict between P and L. At least that's one conflict that I noticed, right? And I think, yeah, it's a really good deep dive into the differences and how that is seen, in real life. So, yeah.
I think that is a key aspect of this film. I get the strong sense it is a film that was put together, whether it's in the script, I think it was based on the book, wasn't it? Based on the book,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
predominantly gamma in its focus. It is
sure.
about the idea of, well, the main thrust is that you have this individual who's highly capable being confronted with the sort of narrow, almost blind ideology that won't accept the facts which is directly in front of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think a key thing, I mean, I'm kind of jumping to a scene, but there's a tribunal scene where, it's like a court scene and he has to defend himself, but he can't defend himself. It's the apes, Cornelius and Zira who have to defend him. And yeah, they are just not taking in any information. They have their assumptions, their beliefs, and it's very rigid. And so it's not, if when they're presented with the new information, they're looking at it through the framework of what they already believe. So he can't make a case essentially.
Yes, he is not able to break through. I mean, he does pretty convincingly, except that they'll then exploit technicalities and loopholes to then
Yes,
rule out the very evidence they've seen. Yes, there's fantastic evidence that proves everything that is correct, but because we are using this technicality, we will not accept this evidence so that we are then able to preserve our narrative. And
that's right.
that scene is pushing that to its limit to show how absurd it is, and it is essentially a kangaroo court. What I find very interesting is it also, it also then gets real with the audience towards the end
Yeah.
with Zaius. He is one
Yes.
of the top orangutans. All the orangutans who are the sort of
Yeah.
this ideological priestly class, where this Zaius fellow, he is not only head of science, he's also protector of the faith, and
That's
so then
right. That's right.
his roles contradict each other and compromise. And if his view is, well, it's only real science if it's in line with the faith, is the whole point of what he's trying to say. But it
Yeah.
becomes clear that no, he knows at the end of the day that yes, humans. I should also set this out as a. We should actually set out the basic plot for people so they
Sure.
understand what we're talking about. In case people are not aware,
Sure.
Planet of the Apes, the basis of this is that you have these human astronauts flying off into space in the year 1972. Um, they, in the course of their flight, they travel essentially thousands of years into Earth's future. Their mission is to travel to a distant planet. But the idea is they knew that they'd be leaving the Earth they knew behind. They would never see their loved ones again, anything like that. They're going to the distant future to settle a new planet to populate it with humans. They even have a female member on board because three male astronauts to one female astronaut is a very poor mating strategy. And
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially, that a lot of mistakes were made, including the female astronaut dying due to a sort of
Gas leakage.
a gas
Sure.
leakage,
Yeah.
preventing her induced time lock from working. So she aged 80 years in a sleep and died. Um,
Yeah.
the And the key thing here is that they land on this strange planet where apes have taken over, and what appear to be humans for some reason are stupid and they wander around that without the ability to even speak, and they're basically
Yes.
and the apes with relatively primitive technology. It's not as if they're anywhere near as advanced as humans were at the time they flew off into space, but still
Yes.
almost medieval level technology with holding pens and other means. I think they do have guns. They have guns. It's sort of like 20th early 20th century technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are, yeah, able to control the humans, of course, and they treat them like beasts. They have this all sort of invented religious ideology about the supremacy of apes and how bestial humans were. And this one lone astronaut of his two friends are captured, and one is shot dead and stuffed, and another one is lobotomized. He's the only one that remains with any kind of wits, and his mission is to try to escape and to use his intelligence and his ability to do so. Of course, the big plot twist is he finds out that this is actually Earth. It's not
Yes.
a foreign planet. It actually is Earth. The travel log had a glitch, and so it just took them back to Earth thousands of years into the future.
Yeah.
And he finds and he discovers the Statue of Liberty right at the end in the
Yes.
forbidden, which no apes are allowed to go into. Why? Because
Yeah.
it hides the fact that there was an advanced human civilization, that
Right.
humans were always beasts, and apes were not always intelligent, fully sentient beings. So yes, it's that's sort of a plot in a nutshell. He also picks up a rather sexy-looking mute female who he decides to make his, I guess, to make his mate, given that he can't find any talkative women in the area anymore. But yeah, that's basically the plot.
Yeah.
There are two apes who help him, who are chimpanzees. They're scientists. They're more sympathetic once Discovery can speak. But the
Yeah.
orangutans are the ones who are, are
The
the
intellectuals,
the
the
intellectuals.
priestly class. Yeah. And then the, what's it called? The gorillas are the soldiers, right? Or the military.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
the brute muscle, as you could say. Although
Yeah.
so for some reason, despite being the brute muscle, the human seems to be able to do pretty well against most of them, which
Yeah.
is, I think that part is phased out in the more modern series where it's more accurate
Sure.
to primate physiology or differences in primate physiologies. Um, yes, so that's the basis. So as you say, there's this theme of this guy presenting evidence basically by being able to talk, by
Yeah.
being articulate, not being allowed to talk in his defense, having to write things down for someone else to present, which they then dismiss as some sort of joke, especially when he says it came from outer space, which wasn't true. He
Yeah.
thought it was true, but it wasn't true. But his ability to talk, his ability to be intelligent is plain evidence, but they reject it. It becomes clear that it's less because they cannot compute, and maybe one or two of the orangutans, but the chief one, Dr. Zayas, it seems to be no, it's
Hmm.
because he recognizes the need to preserve narrative
That's
to,
right.
to a whole retain power.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of get into that because it's kind of like a Chesterton Spence thing, right? He knows the truth about humans, right? But he doesn't want to dismantle it. And again, I kind of wanted to get into his type because I mean I think he's an LSI, right?
Yes,
And there's a lot of different ways, right? Even I mean we can start off with the P ignoring. He knows the reality about humans. It's not that he can't comprehend it, but he has his L reasoning that if we dismantle this society and if we don't have, if we reveal to the society that humans are not these, brutes, they're not these backward people, then that dismantles the entire logical justification for the society and it comes crashing down,
yes,
right? And then there's also the aspect of T, because as you said, he's kind of like the chief defender of the faith, right? And Dr. Zayas, in a sense, is also an encapsulation of, yeah, the very beta society that is this ape world, right? With F plus L, right? You have a clear set of rules, clear set of beliefs, right? And there's also kind of the aspect of tea where that gives them meaning. That gives the apes a sense of meaning. Okay, you're a gorilla. You're gonna be a part of, your destiny is to become a soldier. Or you're gonna be an orangutan. You were part of the priestly class and you have to defend the tradition. This kind of thing. And obviously, it's enforced ruthlessly. And Dr. Zaius will just basically, how can I say, there was a part where Taylor was drawing something on the sand and he kind of gets rid of it. Again, it's just a ruthless enforcement of the narrative.
And that's the first sign you see, not just the sort of unlucky ignorance which the main character Taylor was first faced with, but the first
Mm-hmm.
time where Dr. Zaius shows his desire to deliberately cover up the truth through whichever means possible. And it extends and it builds to the point where there's this cave is discovered by one of the characters, Cornelius. He's a chimpanzee
Yeah,
scientist. I mean, the
yeah.
chimpanzees are the sort of they're not the intellectuals in the sense of the ruling class. They
Mm-hmm.
are they are more simple scientists, heads of departments, that sort of thing. And so still above the gorillas. They're not the brutes. They're thinkers, but they're not. They don't set out the ideology. They're pretty empirical. And he
Yes.
discovers, from I guess bending a few rules in terms of where to go and look, he discovers that there is a cave, and in that cave we can see ape ruins, which are quite primitive, and under those ruins, more advanced civilization, which suggests a devolution rather than an evolution, which goes against the whole idea that apes, became supreme
That's
among the
right.
rest. The next thing is, of course, when they go to this cave, and Taylor confronts Dr. Zaius, who comes with them as a hostage, and he throws at Dr. Zaius. I just got to he tricked, no, he persuades her to come in willingly at that point, but then he becomes a hostage. He throws at him a doll, a human
Yeah,
doll, and
yeah,
he asks, and he says, "Well, they could easily have people can have a doll of a human. Why wouldn't a pet? Why wouldn't an ape have a doll, a human doll for fun? And would they really make a human doll that can talk? And of course,
yes,
string, and
yes,
it makes a human sound like talking, and then it's proved no, this is
yes,
made, and of
yeah,
course, it has the cave blown up at the end to preserve the narrative, and so it shows that key theme play out.
yeah. And maybe that's kind of maybe that I wonder if that's also kind of an aspect of E, right? Or how the L interacts with E, because you're trying. I mean, there's the aspect of L in the sense of the rules, but there's also the question of like image management or optics, right? You have to maintain the optics as well, right? And I mean, I don't know if I'm going too far with this, but in some ways, I feel like Dr. Zayas kind of fails at that, right? And that's the weak E in an LSI. But
Mm.
yeah,
There's a sort of desperate coping. It's very clear he comes across as the villainous figure, despite actually being not being entirely ruthless. He even
yes,
invites in Taylor to have a sort of adult conversation, showing he recognizes unofficially, but of course he's an intelligent human for some reason, and that of
yeah,
course humans are capable of these sorts of things, but this needs to be a very private conversation. He's going to prevent him from being essentially emasculated and lobotomized, as long as he goes and the sort of
yeah,
basically I think he allows Zira and Cornelius, the two chimpanzees, to be excommunicated.
yeah,
um, you see a sort of bargaining that takes place there, which shows that even so, he comes across very clearly the villain in the picture, despite that willingness to actually not go the full hog in killing and destroying. He doesn't want to kill and destroy. He wants to do
hmm,
the bare minimum necessary to maintain the ideology. He's not a
yeah,
sadist.
yes,
He's simply someone who recognizes the need for ideology and the ideology and
yeah.
preservation of power.
Yeah, and it's also about kind of sustaining the society because it goes back to something I said earlier. I mean, if these things start leaking out, the logical justification for, okay, why are we keeping humans in cages? Why are we treating them like animals? Why are we hunting for them? This all just kind of goes away, right?
Yes.
And then I guess, yeah, I mean, going back to T, I think there's also the aspect of the whole question of the meaning of the society, the meaning of the people in it. It also kind of crumbles. So he's left in the scenario where, okay, if this whole thing falls, what else is there? It just seems like our inevitable destruction. So I think that's also another concern. Yeah.
Yes. It is interesting. It's what's not explored enough is exactly why they need to maintain this narrative. I guess that's something which may become more clear in the sequels. I haven't seen the sequels.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
So there are like four sequels to this film, and in the next film they kind of go a bit deeper into that, right?
Mm.
But I don't want to get into that because I don't want to spoil
But
it. But
no, no,
yes,
we
you're,
can we
you're
can watch
definitely on
the
this.
sequels and analyze them in further installments.
Sure, sure. I mean, did you want to get into the types of any other particular characters, Cornelius and Zira, or
Yes, I mean, one of the first things I should say is the protagonist, Taylor.
yes,
He's not necessarily a fluffy protagonist at all. He's a deeply cynical, acerbic human. You can see his interactions with the other humans. He mocks one of his fellow
hmm
astronauts for he
the
just
American
laughs in space
flag,
with the American flag, and like,
yeah,
as you can see, the sheer pointlessness of that gesture. Why are you colonizing this planet in the name of a country that has likely ceased to exist
yes,
thousands of years
yes,
ago?
yes,
And you see
yes,
that. See, he's a very intelligent man. He thinks about the repercussions of actions. He is
yeah,
also, as you see throughout the film, remarkably tactical in his ability to evade capture and capitalize on the situation. And as soon as he sees an opportunity, he takes it. He persuades the other chimpanzees who are his allies to give him
hmm
the gun. So now he has power over the situation. Now he can do whatever he
yes,
wants, and he commands the
yes,
situation from that point onwards. So he's a disagreeable person. He is
hmm
he's misanthropic. He's almost wanted to get away from almost the stupidities of humanity. So that
right,
at the same time, he there isn't much sign of introverted ethics. He wants companionship, but he's happy to have a mute woman with no sort of emotional connection to him as a companion. Really, it's just for just basically again for a mate. There's almost an animalistic aspect to him alongside his intellect and his clear sort of almost Ubermenschen physique,
sure,
which is able to dominate his surroundings. Um,
hmm
in a way, I see him as sort of a composite of maybe two different types. I was wondering
yeah,
what you were thinking for him.
yeah, maybe, yeah. I mean, I guess yeah, if we're gonna follow that chain of logic, yeah, maybe like a composite of an SLE and an SEE. I think that's where I was at, right? Because the thing is, yeah, there's not much of an. I mean, to a degree, when it comes to introverted ethics, I mean, he was able to, get the support of Cornelius and Zira and a few of the other apes, and in that sense, right, he's quite non-ideological. I mean, he's just kind of poking fun or criticizing anything that seems quite stupid to him or just
Yes.
irrational. I mean, there's clearly a competence in F, right, and more of a tactical rather than strategic intelligence. Uh,
Mm,
but yeah, I feel he's a character that he's trying to be quite rational, but it takes him a while to realize these people are not rational at all.
yes.
So yeah, I mean, those are some
Yes.
of the things that come to mind.
I would say he's probably a mix. I think definitely SLE is the character he always ends up being in that.
Hmm
He almost can't be anything else other than SLE. He's
Sure.
perhaps a more reflective one, a bit more like a Rhett Butler sort of SLE figure, where there's
Yeah.
a misanthropic side to him. There's that reflection on the stupidities of mankind. There's an
Mm-hmm.
intellectual edge to him. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like an SLE character written by an LIE or even an ILI, and he's got the
Sure.
LIE tendencies. I think you first see him on the ship, and he is there reflecting on the longer term repercussions of what they've done,
Yes.
where they're going, what the
Yes.
future holds in that respect. And
hmm
you can see him talking to the other astronauts. they're not really even thinking about what this all means and where this all is leading to. It's very clear to him. So he
Hmm.
goes from sort of a slightly obnoxious LIE to then being a very much an SLE action hero, where the extrovert sensation being the leading function is clear. It cannot be anything other than a strong part for him.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
also the single moment of utter stupidity on his part, because he is the leader in this. He sees these scarecrows. We are yet to really understand what these scarecrows are about, why they're there in the first place, who
Yeah.
put them up there. Nevertheless, he sees the scarecrows. He then
Yeah.
hears falling water. And he thinks,
Hmm.
never mind the scarecrows, there's water. And so they run off, forget about the scarecrows. They all dismantle. They take off all their clothes. This is when the humans creep up and steal their clothes and hide
The
them.
ape. The humans or the apes?
I think it's I think it must be the humans, because the apes, they just go in
You know
and
what? Yeah,
they.
you're right. You're
I
right.
think it's the humans take their
Yeah.
clothes, and because
Yeah.
they then
Yeah.
come out and all these humans wandering around basically in loincloths. And
Mm.
that's when the apes come in, and there's a whole sort of with nets essentially capturing all the different
Yeah.
humans, treating them all as
Yeah.
beasts. Like the apes are genuinely surprised when they realize that some of these humans can speak. So my impression is
Yeah. I think it was the
humans.
humans.
I think I
Yeah.
saw human hands rather than ape hands,
Sure.
gorilla hands taking the clothes. But yeah, the point is they left themselves entirely vulnerable, despite knowing that there had to be some sort of sentient creature nearby, given that there were scarecrows. So that's the really sort of stupid part. So it's not as if he's perfectly intelligent. But then again, he was probably deeply worried for his physical nutrition, given he landed on a barren planet.
Sure.
And it's a miracle
Sure.
that he found a plant in the first place, let alone
Yeah.
running water.
Yeah.
Because it was Earth, so they was going to. But what they didn't know at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that suggests to me a certain amount of rushing into things rather than actually thinking things through, which again I think points more towards SLE
Yes.
over an LIE, which I think would probably have
Sure.
hung back a bit and think, hang on, why
Yeah.
the scarecrow here? What does that mean?
Hmm.
So I think SLE for him, but written by a gamma, and
Sure.
clearly
Exactly.
gamma versus beta. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, I don't see much of any introverted ethics to him. I mean, he gets upset when his friend gets lobotomized, but
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
particularly, you
Sure.
know, you'd be surprised if he weren't, given he'd said this man was basically the top of his class, was brilliant. But we didn't really see any of that brilliance because he didn't really understand. You don't need to erect an American flag. They
Hmm.
sort of develop these characters only to sort of kill them off quite quickly.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I think it's elite. Zera and Cornelius, I find the most interesting characters
Hmm.
in this.
Sure. I mean, I'll just say what I think they are. I guess
Go ahead.
an LSC EII couple.
Mm,
That's what my instinct told me,
mm.
with Zira being EII, Cornelius LSC. Not sure how you saw it, but
I think that Cornelius is SLI rather than LSC. I think very much in that area. The key thing I noticed for Cornelius, it's Zera who speaks out about things, not because
hmm.
she's especially assertive, but because
Hmm.
she always has she has no real understanding of where she's putting herself in danger
That's right.
from
That's right.
discovering.
That's right.
She reminds me a lot of our mutual friend Rita in some
That's right.
ways. She's got
Yeah.
that sort of silent
Obliviousness.
that exactly that I don't mean to speak critically of Rita, but there's a certain she's mentioned these examples that she's had, which she's spoken up because she's seen something, she's made a connection. It all makes it all intuitively works, but she's not aware of the power dynamics around her, which will cause her to then get into trouble. That's basically what Zera does. She discovers this
Yeah.
ape is gesticulating in a way which suggests intelligence beyond what she's ever seen. So of course she's
That's right.
fascinated, and there's a pure desire to understand this phenomenon far better and to raise attention to it, and then naively puts herself in the firing line of being excommunicated. Meanwhile, you have Cornelius, who's clearly an empirical person first and foremost. He is almost Darwin-like, collected the evidence in the cave,
Hmm.
figure out, okay, we know from this that that cannot mean that. It cannot be the case that humans evolved. That there was a process just of evolution, but there was a process of devolution. It had to be based on the layering of the caves and normal archaeology, you could say.
That's
But
right.
at the same time, he plays a far more careful game, and so he's reluctant to immediately accept the idea that this human might speak. He's initially very dismissive of it,
Hmm.
not because he's closed-minded or needs a whole narrative. It's just outside of his frame of experience. He's quite quick to dismiss that. But another key thing is that the bravery comes entirely from Zera. Cornelius, he will support her out of loyalty.
Yeah.
He stand by her in situations, but in other situations, he shows a certain amount of moral cowardice in comparison to her. And even when this Taylor is kissing her on the lips as a sort of
Right.
gesture, you can see he does not like this. He
Yeah,
does
he's
not
bothered. Yeah.
doubt it. And the key and the main thing is Taylor takes charge of a situation with the gun and all the rest. He's not
Hmm.
doing anything to prevent that sort of situation potentially being dangerous for them. So there are reasons there which I think SLI perhaps makes more sense. He's quiet, he's diplomatic. There's a certain snarky cynicism to him as well.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
he practically lays out the evidence. He knows the dynamics far better, but he doesn't make
Yes.
any sort of impassioned plea or anything particularly active. He's just really supportive in the background, whilst having
Hmm.
quietly done some quite important work. Um,
Yeah. Yet when I mean he does push back a bit on Taylor when Taylor wants to take it too far, he kind of tells him just hold off a bit. So yeah, there is
yes,
some that.
yes, there is that. Yeah, exactly. There's some clashing. It's clear that Taylor's basically taking charge, and they're basically letting him take charge, even though.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is also a disagreement, especially when he starts mistreating Zeus quite vengefully. He ties him up in exactly the sort of dehumanizing
Yeah.
way in which he was tied up,
Yeah.
um, and you can see what I find is quite interesting is that the chimpanzees start getting quite sympathetic towards Dr. Zeus at that point. And you see the sort of there's a certain non-committalness, and they see, hang on, we don't quite like this anymore. And actually, fine, this guy lobotomized your friend, and he was going to emasculate you and lobotomize you, but it's not very nice that you're tying him up and all the rest. And you see
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a more genteel, hand-wringing approach, which I think you'd find far more with the deltas. It's
Yes,
clear
that's right.
that they are extroverted logic valuing both of them. They are not the
Hmm.
whole narrative. Um, but yes, there is
Yeah.
that non-committal gentleness that comes from them, which allows them then to be taken advantage of to some degree, both by Taylor
That's right.
but also by
Yeah.
Zaius.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a good assessment. And I mean, as for Zira, I mean her initial instinct, it was just kind of a gut instinct. There's something, there's something special here, or
Yes.
there's someone that's showing potential here, right? Obviously, she was gathering the evidence as well, but it was something like almost like her gut told her there's something here, I have to explore that, right? And yeah, there is that kind of obliviousness to power where, I mean, she doesn't realize if you go too far with this, you're just going to get shut down,
Yes.
right? So whereas Cornelius is more careful in that department. But yeah, again, I'd say it's more of a plot-driven film than really a character-driven film, right? Because a lot of the characters are just there kind of standing by, right? These few characters are probably the most important ones. I think the character that I find the most fascinating is Zaius, just because again, it's a very interesting depiction of an
Mm,
LSI, right? And then again, just going back to this idea where there's this clash, well, what do we do with the information, right? Do we keep this noble lie that allows our, society to sustain itself, or do we just, do we release everything and face the repercussions, right?
mhm.
So it kind of like it gives his character some dimension.
Yes. And I think it raises him above the other orangutans that you see you don't see just an idiot, a blind idiot in a kangaroo court. You see someone pretending to be a blind
Yeah,
idiot in a kangaroo court because the
yeah,
repercussions would be far worse for
yes,
reasons which will be revealed in future films.
sure. There's a self-awareness to it, I guess is a long story short. But
Yes,
yeah. One other thing, when it comes to like the lawgiver and the laws, one thing that, that I wondered is, why do the apes care so much about the humans if they were inferior? It just seems like they're overcompensating. Why do the sacred scriptures, why does it talk about humans so much? If the
yes,
humans aren't that important, why even pay them lip service? So that's just something else. But
yes. This is the final interesting theme to the film because there is a sort of defensiveness, perhaps an inferiority complex. But what's then
yeah,
sort of revealed when he finally realizes that the Forbidden Zone is the New York area, is Manhattan. The Forbidden Zone is Manhattan, and
yeah,
that he discovers the Statue of Liberty right at the end. This is Taylor once he's finally free with his basically his mute mate, and he finds the Statue of Liberty. He collapses in that sort of moment of realization. But that's when this whole narrative of humans being beastly. But when you go deeper into the religious records, it's not just that they're stupid; it's that they are actually destructive and beast-like, not just in a stupid way, but in a destructive way, and that they are dangerous. Um, Now that part it comes out later in the film. It comes out when they're on the beach, and Zeus is asking Cornelius to recite a certain aspect of scripture. But it becomes confirmed because it reveals for some reason humans basically did this to themselves.
yes, yes. No, exactly, exactly. That is a good point. I mean, if I had anything to say on that, I really do wonder, thinking about it from the author's perspective, what it was that he was trying to convey with that story. Was he being critical of human nature, or what was it? Is it kind of like a cautionary tale? I mean, I don't know what if you had any thoughts on that, but
I think in some ways, I think that in some ways he is, and this is my speculation, he is trying to present his own struggle with his appreciation of mankind and its foibles. And I think this is what Taylor goes through. He is a misanthrope. He then becomes the lone defender of the virtues of mankind in a world that sees mankind only as stupid beasts. And then his own what's the word? His own defeat to the cause he'd taken up, which he'd never thought he'd take up in the first place. When he was no, humans did bring about the destruction of everything. And in the meantime, what is he fighting against? These apes. They are, in some ways, a pastiche of the very sort of worst, most narrow-minded elements of mankind. The apes have become like every bit as bad of what people would criticize of humans. In that sort of preservation of ideological narrative, a rejection of fact, the construction of palaces upon clouds in the sky, essentially. And I think
yeah,
it's the story, I think, of a gamma NT's frustrations with mankind, and also the recognition of their virtues and what makes them worthwhile at the end of the day, but still find that despite all of this and that moment of giving them a chance, humans still at the end of the day mucked it
screw
up.
it up.
We
Yeah,
are going to muck it up like this.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a very good point. I mean, I think maybe it's also useful to look at this film in the context of the time. It was released during the Cold War, right? So there was that concern with, like a nuclear bomb, right? Or
Mm,
some kind of threat like that. And again, maybe it just goes back to maybe existential concerns that people had at the time. But
mm,
yeah, no, I think those are definitely a lot of good points. I don't know if you realize this, but I always found it intriguing because to me it was a disconnect. It looks like it was like the New York area. However, the whole thing looked like a desert, and they actually filmed this in like Utah. So
Yeah,
there's, yeah, exactly. There's quite
yeah.
a disconnect with the geography where how did this end up like this? Again, it's 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it would not I mean geology would not have changed that much in 2 to 3 thousand years. But yeah, it's
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of suspension of belief there. What I find is very useful just all to say, Planet of Apes is based on a book by Pierre Boulle. It is actually a French author, but published in the US. But it was written in 1963, so not that long before the film came out. So yes, I think it still represents Cold War themes, and this, and it was written perhaps with a similar sort of intent.
yes, yes. Taking it kind of further, not necessarily related, but I don't know. I mean, I know there's the Time Machine book, the one written by H.G. Wells. Do you see any similarities of that book to this book? Right?
Oh,
Uh,
huge similarities. But I mean, okay, the difference there, I think the chief difference there is that one sees humanity splitting into two, whereas the other sees
yes,
humanity becoming like, the sort of rather stupid, but also very sort of beautiful ones. Of course, in this case, they're just stinky. And yeah, the more predatory element is the apes, not humans. I
that's
think
right.
there are lots of similarities there.
Yeah,
It it makes me. I'm not. I need to. I need to watch the Time Machine there again as a film to examine the themes. I'm not sure if it comes from the same kind of misanthropy. I think it's more of a sort of a thought experiment of how humans might develop because it shows both sides
yes,
of humans
yes,
develop. Neither of them good, but both of them different from how humans are today.
yes. And I just wonder if both maybe both speak about maybe a lack of belief in oneself. I don't want to say the word hedonism, but it's kind of like, I mean, because in the Time Machine you have these two species, right? The Morlocks and I think the others, the Enoi, the
Yes,
Eloi, something like that.
Eloi. Yes,
And yeah, and I think the Eloi are these very kind of complacent, just there's almost nothing to them, right? Which kind of reminded me of the humans in this film, where there's just no intellectual ability, there's nothing. I almost wonder if the similarity is like they have a lack of belief in themselves, like they're just, it's almost like a learned helplessness or a powerlessness. Again, maybe I'm taking it a bit too far, but that is kind of
I,
a similarity I see.
I think the Time Machine would be a lot more interesting if it were released in the modern day.
Sure, sure. I think there was a 2002 film, but
Yes, I need to see it. I haven't seen it.
yeah,
I think I saw some
but
of
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I mean, I guess even had Taylor the astronaut not arrived, I guess there was already kind of a crack in the rigid structure of the society because they were already allowing these expeditions to the forbidden zone. So it's kind of an interesting hypothetical where how long would the structure would have lasted, right? Because they were
Yeah.
already doing these expeditions. Cornelius was already collecting these findings. Taylor kind of marked a turning point for the society, but it is an
Yeah.
interesting hypothetical. How long, just not even in this society, but in general, how long are you able to keep up a noble lie? I guess it's a question of ruthlessly enforcing the narrative, but even that, it's not sustainable. So
I agree. I think in some ways it's because Taylor appeared and the level of urgency ramped up that actually was what led to the narrative actually being able to protect itself. If he hadn't shown up, then Cornelius would have continued digging. He would have found the doll, and he would have probably made his own, conclusions on the back of that. Um, but by the narrative being disrupted so outrageously with talking human in the flesh appearing, that almost forced drastic action from the orangutans, When before, they weren't allowing people to go into the forbidden zone, but scientists were bending the rules and going in there anyway, and they were sort of lax about it at the time. They weren't quite the Iranians weren't deeply investigating and trying to crack down ruthlessly on it. So yeah, I think there could have easier been an outbreak of heresy, which was quashed because it was almost too much too soon.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think we're in agreement there. Definitely the arrival marked the turning point. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of, I mean, yeah, they could have sustained it, but I guess maybe there had to be another, another force like that. Because the thing is, it wasn't just them that saw Taylor, it was the entire society. And it wasn't a very big society, but it was almost the entire society that saw Taylor. So it was just, again, when it was the exposure was so massive, you can't just erase that. So,
I don't
yeah.
I don't recall Taylor talking to that much. I mean, there's a point where he's running around in society, but
Yeah,
it's much like if a black bear had escaped a zoo. Is that sort of everyone's running away
somewhat.
and
Yeah.
thinking what to do, and this
Yeah.
bear is sort of hard to capture. He wasn't really talking to them; he was running away
He
from.
he interrupted a church service. That's one thing. And then he was in a museum, and then they saw him. Yeah,
Yes, yes. I don't know if he was doing much talking there. They could
sure,
potentially have. It's not as if he was speaking on the stage in front of hundreds of
sure.
listening apes, but I,
Yeah.
I give him there was certainly exposure, fear of exposure. I think therefore the willingness to sort of correct it by whatever means were necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess if there's one other thing that comes to mind is just especially in that tribunal scene, going back to that, they were starting from these assumptions about, the nature of apes, the nature of man, and it's just
Mm.
something that, you have to be really careful with. If you're starting with a set of assumptions, you have to make sure that they're right. Because if you're starting from assumptions that are wrong, then and you base your argument off of that, then the whole argument is going to fall apart. So, but again, that applies to the more not to Zaius, but to the other apes.
I wonder if, well, I think it feeds back to the idea that these assumptions were set because of the conclusions that they would reach, and the idea they're put in there for a distinct purpose, as we discussed, is that sort of
Sure,
societal control. And you
sure.
can see that there's a control even more than just the human ape ideology, the caste system they have, where depending on what species of great ape you are, you occupy a certain role in society. Even the clothes you wear which is why the orangutans all look the same. You can't really tell them. You can't tell
Yeah,
them very well because they're all golden furry creatures and
yeah,
all exactly the same clothes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's it called? The chimpanzees all wear green, and I can't even remember what the gorillas were. I guess it's kind of like a brown.
Is it black? I think something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's some kind of armor that they.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I didn't. There's nothing really else that came to mind as far as this film goes. I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to add, but yeah, I think like you said, it's a gamma kind of looking at a very rigid beta society, right? And this main character, which yeah, it's almost like you said, it seems like he thinks like an LIE or he has a gamma anti mentality, but I mean, he's very clearly confident and extroverted sensation, right? So and that's how he kind of how can I say that's it's almost like the bull in the china shop. He completely
Yes,
disrupts the fabric of the society.
yes,
So
yes. Pretty much. And
yeah,
this is his ability to physically overpower gorillas is at least, you know,
yeah, yeah. Again, that's one of the things that yeah I kind of like about the newer Planet of the Apes films that they
yeah,
go into how did this even happen mechanistically. Here's just that you get there and then well how did this happen? There's no explanation, right?
yeah.
But yeah,
Like as soon as that's the thing, it makes it feel more plausible because as soon as you narrow the intelligence gap and you also narrow the numbers gap, the apes will win because
yes,
they are physically more capable.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, no, very well. Yeah, again, I didn't really have anything else to say. I'm not sure if there's anything else that came to mind for you, but Yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoyed the film because of the
Yeah,
theme,
yeah,
right? And then again, from a socionics perspective, there's a lot of the characters are interesting, but overall, kind of the plot, right? And the this conflict of how can I say it, the narrative or maintaining the narrative is something
yes,
that even in society today we kind of see. So
yes. I also quite enjoyed the hammy acting from Charlton Heston.
because there's a self-awareness to it, right? He knows what he's in,
Yeah,
right? But it's not like so bad it's good. But he finds a good balance. Finds a
yes,
good mix of like the serious and but at the same
yes,
time he knows. So yeah, this is an apes film. Everyone's an ape costume.
yeah. I did a bit of digging, and it turned out they sort of struggled to keep him for the second film. They managed to, but in a vastly reduced role, so that they could simply say starring Charlton Heston.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because I mean, you couldn't really recognize the other actors with the makeup. So I mean, I mean, there's a film that Peter and I have spoken about, Streetcar Named Desire,
Mm,
and one of the characters from there, Stella, the actress who plays Stella plays Zero, but you can't really know that.
really? Ah.
Yes, yeah, but you can't really know that from the makeup. So
Mm. Oh, another very good clue for for Zero being the association with an INFJ rather than ENFP is her bluntness, and a completely innocent bluntness. Is when she gives her, he gives her a kiss and says, "But you're so ugly."
how the standards have changed, right? Yeah, but yeah, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good point. Yeah,
yeah. And so that's also just a little thing there, a little extroverted ethics ignoring function, just to so she's not an IE, she's the II. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Good deal, good deal. Yeah, man. Appreciate the time. Yeah, it was a good analysis. I enjoyed it. So,
Me too. Thanks for getting me to do this, Daniel. I appreciate it. Let's do the
so
next. Let's see the following films.
yes, I think it's called Beneath the Planet of the Apes, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think my wife will be watching this one with me, but
Sorry to hear.
I shall watch them. Right.
Right. Good deal, man. Good deal. All right.
All right. Well, thanks, Daniel. And
Yes, sir.
any questions from the audience about Planet of the Apes? Um, no. Oh, I see. People want Rita to come back. I am working on something. I got an idea to do something with Rita, so you may see her soon. You may see her soon.
In the
Not
works. Yeah,
confirming
it's
it
in the
yet.
works.
Not confirming it yet. Right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daniel. Speak soon.
Bye-bye. All right, man. Yeah, thanks. It was kind of
Bye.
my first time,
Yep.
on camera.